Why do we enter the Buddha Dharma? Why do we enter the spiritual path? There is no way out of a maze if we don't know that we are lost in a maze. There is no relief from a problem we don't even know we have or fully understand. This is one of the amazing things about how the Buddha first started to point to the nature of our existence. I feel sometimes we don't remember that enough. I get it. It's much more interesting to look at topics like pure awareness and awakening and all those wonderful things. And in the Dzogchen teachings, that is mostly what we are teaching and applying, how to recognize our intrinsic, pure, non-dual awareness, which is itself the nature of reality, Buddha nature. But how are we approaching this path? What is our mindset? Because that matters. The mind turned towards awakening, that which we call bodhicitta, that matters in Dzogchen also a lot. When we sit in meditation, why? Why spend our time on that when we could be watching a movie or going to a party or something like that? Enjoying life, as people say. The Dharma is something truly incredible. A deep dive into our essence, into our nature. When we look at the very root of the Buddhist teaching about the nature of existence, but I mean, to really look, to have a deep, brutal, and honest look, it's very humbling. At least myself, I always found it very humbling. And then looking at the world, all beings, it's incredible. It's very touching, actually. We get a real sense of how important the Dharma is. In a sutra called the Samadhi Sutra, there is a passage where the Buddha uses the example of a strong experience of happiness and suffering within a dream. Someone having a dream, and in that same dream, they experience something very blissful, and then immediately something very painful. Then the Buddha says, know that all things are like this. I think that if we are not entering the Dharma from this place, then we can easily be fooling ourselves, chasing after spiritual illusions or spiritual materialism. There is this simple and very direct message in the story of the early life of the Buddha. Many people know the general story, but when we read the actual sutra, there is one part that is so touching. In short, this is just before Siddhartha leaves the palace. There is a conversation with his father, the king. His father appeals to him to stay, not to leave. his father tells him, "But why go? If you stay, you will become king after me. You will rule after all this kingdom. If you stay, I will give you all that you wish. You can have the entire kingdom." The young prince replies, "If you can give me 4 things, I will stay. Can you give me freedom from suffering? Can you give me freedom from old age, sickness, and death?" His father, with tears in his eyes, said, "No, I cannot give you that. No one can give you that." And so he left. He left to find the answer to birth, life, and death, to wake up from this dream, to show us, to tell us what is the nature of this existence, of this self. This is truly where the Dharma begins. And it is also where it ends. No matter which Dharma tradition we practice, this is the foundation for all of us. If this is not the foundation, then what are we searching for? The search is not something outside. The Buddha walked out, he went forth. In the end, the Dharma points us to ourselves, because we don't know ourselves. The story from the life of the Buddha shows that the answer is not in becoming king. So broadly, of course, this means there is no outer solution for the fundamental condition of our existence. This is not a negative or pessimistic view. This is the insight that points us in the direction of the real solution. That's why it's so important. It provides strong roots for our path. A humble path, genuine, authentic, no fantasies. Once we really see that there is no outer solution, then we have to look within. Then these questions arise. Who is it that is born and dies? Who is it that experiences this life? Who is it that experiences suffering and pleasure? Who is it that is experiencing the results of past karma? And who is it that wants to reach awakening? The answer is simple here. There's no need to get philosophical. We can just say it's me. But then, what is this me? There is this popular idea of, I'm going to find myself. Well, that is a great thing, but what are we searching for and where? Are we searching for something like, what is my real identity? Or things like, am I a coffee person or a tea person? From the Dharma's perspective, we are searching for this root sense of self. What is that? That is the thing that is closest to us, that is always here and we never look at it. We dress it up with ideas about it. We feed it concepts. We give it names and labels. We make up thoughts about it. And the irony of it is that same self is the one driving everything we do, and we never look to see clearly what it is. And that is the way out of this maze. So to resolve this issue of birth and death, of suffering, is the same as resolving of what is the meaning of me? What is me? Ultimately. All of these things I'm talking about today, I really feel so deeply about because it's so precious. This is the gift from the Buddha. This is what gives depth and heart to our spiritual path. This is where genuine compassion arises from. This is where genuine love for awakening arises. And meaning. Meaning. When we are rooted in this deep motivation that comes from understanding the nature of this existence, it prevents us from falling into traps. Like, for example, it's easy to become overly intellectual about all these things, or becoming overly attached to some esoteric mystical experiences, or falling into a kind of worldly spirituality which is very materialistic. The Dharma is not about the intellect. Sure, we use it as needed to understand the teachings and reflect and so on, but in the end, it comes down to concrete experience, something that is completely outside the intellect. Because our real nature, the real nature of this me, is completely outside the intellectual mind. Whatever I think I am, that's not it. You see, the real nature, our authentic condition, it's not an object to the mind. It cannot be. If something appears as an object to the mind, then it's something other than. And that is just duality. But this can be so subtle. If I think I am something, even if I think that I am pure awareness, then that's not it. If I think I am non-dual consciousness, then that's not it. I have this insight appearing to my mind that everything is like a dream, that I have that experience, then that's not it. Our real nature cannot be known by mind as an object to mind. Just like a mirror cannot reflect itself. Mind cannot know our real nature in that way. Only non-dual intrinsic awareness knows its own nature. And this is not an experience. Sometimes we use this term, we need to have concrete experience. But this is just a way of talking because language is limited. Our real nature is not an experience. It's not something we gain or attain or see. There is nothing to attain. There's nothing to see. How can we attain that which is the natural suchness as it is? Sometimes in meditation or during the path, we can have some special experiences, some spiritual experiences or mystical experiences. Sure, it can happen. But those are experiences. They come and they go. If something comes and goes, it's not our real nature. Our real nature never comes and it does not go anywhere. So if something comes and goes, no matter how special it seems to be, never mind. Let it go. Carry on. It's true that some of those insights and experiences, they help us along because they provide some deeper understanding, which can deepen our practice, of course. And they can also offer motivation to continue. But the experience itself goes away. It's finished. Nothing to hold on to or to try to get back. We just let it go. Our real nature, this intrinsic presence, is not created. So it doesn't come or go. This path is about letting go of delusion, allowing the natural state to become clear. Even though it seems we do something at the start, it's more to undo our confusion. In reality, it's more to disentangle a knot or to dissolve a knot, whichever way. But on the other hand, we can also fall for the trap of trying to use the Dharma as a means to make this life better and to make that like the main point. To try to redress the Buddha's teaching in some symbolic form and try to fit it into our materialistic worldviews. But that's where the part of the story of Siddhartha can really be disarming. That story is showing us that the real solution is within and beyond ourselves, not outside. That doesn't mean we cannot try to live a healthier life in the normal sense. Sure, we can, that's fine and probably a good idea. We work within our human condition as best as we can. But it does mean that ultimately, in the end, this condition is limited. The condition of this existence cannot be fixed by our normal mind or our actions in any lasting and definitive way. As an example, in simple terms, if we are thirsty, we can drink some water and our thirst will end. And sure, if we are thirsty, we should find some water to drink. But the point is, we will get thirsty again. That is what the Buddha was showing us. That's why he walked away from the palace. I feel that returning to this point, reminding ourselves clearly is so important. Whether we are beginners and we are starting to examine this, or whether we are more seasoned practitioners, because this is home. This is home in the sense of, for our practice, for our path, this is the root. And if the root is healthy, then we stand well grounded. So to return to that question that I asked earlier, who experiences all these things? It's me. But what is this self? There are several layers to this. So as the Buddha taught from the start, there is no self. There is not. It's an illusion. But that discovery reveals that our real nature is the fullness of the non-dual primordial awareness, the ground of reality. From the Dzogchen Atiyoga point of view, we still need to examine this self. What is it? Sure, there is nothing there. We need to see that. As a first layer, we could say that what we call self is the flux of all these experiences of mind and senses that are being labeled incorrectly as one thing. Just like we project a fixed thing onto a river. A river is never the same, not even for an instant, but we project a fixed entity on that river, and we give it a name, and we perceive it as a thing. We actually perceive it as a thing, as if it's a static, permanent entity. But there is no fixed entity there. But if we look deeper, we will see that all these experiences of mind and senses also are without any fixed essence. Things appear, but they are not as they appear. Here, we would reach now interdependent arising. Relative appearances are dependently arising, interdependently arising. But here we could fall into another trap, see? And that is treating interdependent arising as a solid thing itself. Some would just say it's all just dependent arising, as if that's some kind of final answer. But that view can just become a new fixed position, like that's a real thing. But no, it's not. Interdependent arising is also empty. There are many ways to understand this, but in a simple and direct approach, we can just ask, what is it that is interdependently arising? And what is the basis of all this dependent arising? Then if we observe deeply, we can understand. Yes, in a relative sense, we can speak of dependent arising. But ultimately, that is also rootless, groundless. It is the pure luminosity of the infinite expanse, the ground of reality. So like this, we can start to understand that both this self and the appearances, everything, is like a mirage. But it is when intrinsic awareness dawns clearly, then we can know directly what this apparent self really is, or how it appears and how it fools us into taking it for a real and concrete entity. We can have a concrete knowledge. So the Dharma is grounded on this humbling experience of realizing the state of existence that we find ourselves in with full honesty. And this can be hard. But what have we gained by living our lives chasing after desires, pleasures, and this and that, really, in the end? In the end, it all goes away. And this is not a pessimistic view, this is reality. If there is one message that I would really like to pass through these videos, is this one. Find out who you really are. Find who you really are. And that's not what kind of person you are. That's not really that important. What is the actual condition of this mind? That is really what the Dharma is about. Specifically, from a Dzogchen point of view, we are trying to directly recognize this nature, which is this non-dual intrinsic awareness beyond subject and object. This is our real nature. That is to resolve the meaning of birth and death. We just go straight to the essence, to the main point. But grounded in this humility that the Buddha showed by his example, grounded in the actual understanding of what is our current experience of existence. If we approach the path from this genuine place of humility and willing to surrender our opinions about who we are or how reality is, then we are going forth in the same spirit of Siddhartha, not to find answers outside, but to look directly at what is it that is experiencing all this. That is the way through. That is the way through. Find out. We must find out who we really are. We must find our nature. Hope this helps.